Shalom and welcome to video number 4. We are moving into the Zakef Katon trope family or phrase as you see it here. So in line with what we've been doing with previous families, we're going to introduce the family itself, share the names and how they sound, and then below, as you can see, are variations on how Zakef Katon would be found in the Tanakh. Also, with this trope, there is a singled out trope that is used for accenting as well. So you have the Zakef Katon trope family, and on the bottom of this paper you see something called Yetiv. And Yetiv, if you can hear it with my pronunciation, has the accent at the beginning, where the majority of tropes have their accents at the end, which is where most accents in Hebrew occur. So using Yetiv, as you can see at the bottom, is usually placed on either single syllable words or beginning syllable words. So let's go to Zakef Katon and let's learn about it. So Zakef Katon, again, always remember that the family that you will be presented with, or anytime you see a trope family, you will know what it is by the last trope of the family. So just like in Sof Pasuk, just like in Et Nachta, same thing here. Zakef Katon, which are the 2 dots on top of the Hebrew word, that is the trope symbol called Zakef Katon, and therefore the whole family here is called the Zakef Katon family. Now, I'm sure you're wondering, haven't I seen this one before? Munach. So munach has the root word lanuach, to rest. So it's almost as if the munach trope is resting in preparation for the end. It's like rounding out to the final family. So you're going to see a lot of munachs in more families to come. And it kind of, again, it serves that purpose as about to get ready to finish, you're resting, and then we're done. That's how I like to think about it. So another analogy, before we talked about Zakef Katon, or rather the heads of families, in the analogy of whoever's the head of the family makes dinner that night. Whoever's making dinner that night, let's say, so for my family, my husband is wonderful and makes most of our meals. So he would be considered the head of the family when I'm using that characteristic. So there's 3 of us in the family, and therefore I would categorize him as the head of the family, and then me and my son would be the other members. Now, if I were to have 2 more children, this would be our full family. And the munach analogy that I add to that family analogy is a munach is almost considered like a redhead. You know, the myth that all redheads are related and silliness like that. There's always, well, I shouldn't say always. Always is a hard word to use. In many cases, there are a lot of redheads in families, whether that's for their whole entire lives or as children, but they are part of that family they were born into or created. So the redhead in this family does not mean the redhead in another family or another munach in another family are the same. They look the same, they have the same name, but they are not related. But they will show up, or rather munach will show up in other families as well. Okay? So we will go and review the tropes that do use munach. There are 3 tropes that use the same munach, and they're single tropes, so that'll be helpful as far as remembering what melody to use. Okay, I've dove a little too far down, but in any case, reviewing the last trope of the family, when we're talking from right to left, is the head of the family, and therefore the name of the trope family is named after the head, which is Zakef Katon. Now we move backwards and we see that we have 4 family members in addition to the head. So we call them Kadma, Mapach, Pashta, Munach. And I overemphasize the last syllable in each one of these words because that's where their accent belongs. And therefore, the music of each trope is placed at the end. That's why it's so easy to put the music of tropes on final syllable words. Excuse the dishwasher there. Okay, so point 1, last name of the trope is the head of the family. Point 2, munachs will show up in various occasions, but they are not the same melody. They look the same, but they don't sound the same. And point 3, that in this particular family, Zakef Katon, you have 2 tropes that look very similar to each other, right? They're on top of the Hebrew, they're curved towards the left, but it's all about position. Location, location, location. This trope, which is called kadma, is positioned in the middle of the word, whereas pashcha is dangling off the edge. And I know that seems strange, but it really does make a difference. Now, one thing that I did not add here, and I will make sure to do, is when we have a pashcha, sometimes you will have another one right in front. And that essentially means that when you have a word where the accent's in the middle or the beginning, that second pashcha that would be in front is going to be placed on the accented syllable. But the melody of pashcha, the one that dangles off the edge, is what you would use. So the example I like to use for this is Eloheinu, right? Eloheinu. The second to last accent, or second to last syllable, is accented. So when we would have the word Eloheinu, you would see 2 pashta. And so therefore you would put the accent, the first one, over the hey, but the melody of the dangling pashta is what you would use. So pashta in general sounds like this. Pashta. So when you see double pashta, you would make Eloheinu sound like this. Eloheinu. And I know seeing it makes it harder, but I will hopefully show you an example of how that'll look in just a second. Okay. So, here's how the whole family sounds. Kadma, mapach, pashta, munach, zakef katon. And before I talked about equal signs between tropes, and those essentially indicate for the melody, finishing the trope is the first melody on the following trope. So the example here, kadma, mapach, pashta. See how they all glide into each other? Okay. And the same thing actually goes for munach, zakef katon. All right. So, again, pashta may have at times 2 tropes on top, indicating that the accent is somewhere else other than the end, but the melody you sing is for pashta. Now, if you remember, kadma, as you can see, is very similar to pashta, but the melody is different. Let me sing those 2 so you can hear them. Kadma, pashta, kadma, pashta. So pashta is higher than kadma. This is almost like an intro. Kadma. It sounds like something else is about to happen. Whereas in the pashta, seems a little more final, but there's still something lingering in the air. That's from my musical ear. So, let's take a look at these variations. We have numbers 1 through 5. Number 1, of course, is just the full family, as it were. We're going to sing it again. Here we go. Kadma, mapach, pashta, munach, zakef katon. Okay. Number 2, we have 4 out of the 5 families represented here. And the one we're missing is kadma. So we start with mapach, and everything else follows. Remember, the order of the families do not change. The variation in which they show up will change. Okay, here we go. Mapach, pashta, monach, zakef katon. And I apologize, I'm skipping around here, but something else to note is that, as I mentioned in the very first video, tropes do show up on both top and bottom of the Hebrew word. The Hebrew box, or the box here, is representing a Hebrew word. So on our families that we learned so far, Sof Pasuk and Et Nachta, all families, those families were on the bottom of the Hebrew word. Now we have Zakef Katon, where we represent both the top and the bottom. Okay, number 3. Again, we are now missing two trope people, but the rest of the families, their order is the same, variation is different. Now we're starting with pashta. Pashta, monach, zakef katon. Number 4. Now, this is, before we were just eliminating tropes in order. Now we've come to a variation where we're skipping for before and after. But what's consistent? The head of the family. It will always be there. And when you try to identify your families in a Torah reading, it's important to find the head of the family first and then move backwards to see who is present in that family. Okay, so number 4, we have pashta straight into zakef katon. And in this fact, these actually sing right into each other as well. So it goes like this. Pashta zakef katon. And then number 5, we have all except the last 2. I'm sorry, we have 3 missing and the last 2 are present. Oh boy. Okay, we have monach zakef katon. Alrighty, so now let's take a look here at the bottom. We have, as I mentioned, this trope called Yetiv. Again, Yetiv, as you can hear, has the accent on Ye, whereas most other tropes have their accents at the end, like mapach, zakef katon. Here we have Yetiv. And the trope very much looks like a mapach, but just like kadma and pashta, it's all about location. Here we have mapach in the middle of a word, wherever the accent is. But Yetiv specifically is moved in front of the Hebrew. So the accent, the first syllable is being accented. Hence the name of the trope, basically characterizing what I'm saying. Yetiv versus pashta, right? So Yetiv, looking just like mapach, has to be in front of the Hebrew. And then the music is also is different. So you see the dots up here for mapach and Yetiv. Sounds like this. Yetiv. So you start up high and come on down. So there are 2 main variations for Yetiv. And again, your heads of family will be there. But there are only really 2 variations in which Yetiv musically makes sense. So you have Yetiv monach zakef katon, or Yetiv zakef katon. So in a moment I'm going to show you the Torah portion that we as a class have been working on, which is the maftir of Beshalach. And we're going to use our Zakef Katon families and put them into our portion, so we can see in live action how it looks. But for Yetiv, I just want to show you the example. So let's use the word melech, accent on the meh, right? Melech means ruler. So, and the word Eloheinu, as we were using before for pashta. So if I were to have melech and Eloheinu on Yetiv and Zakef Katon, it would sound like this. Melech Eloheinu. Right? And let's say I use those same two words for Yetiv and Zakef Katon, and I use Shalom for Munach. Melech Shalom Eloheinu. Okay, so now let's take a look. We have our Beshalach Shabbat Maftir. And what I've done for us is color in our families according to the color system that I've created. And I've also colored in the English translation so you can see how it's phrased, which is one of the aspects of trope that we discussed in class 1. All right, so let's take a look at the first yellow family. So we characterize Zakef Katon with the color yellow, by the way. All right, so step number 1 is step number 1, there are 4 main steps that'll help you succeed in reading Torah. These are my steps. So number 1 would be Hebrew. Get comfortable with your Hebrew. When the Hebrew makes sense, the melody falls into place, right? So for now, normally I would probably suggest reading the Hebrew phrases a good 5-6 times, and if you're still not feeling more comfortable, do it as many times as you deem necessary. Okay, but now that we've done the Hebrew, step 2 is identifying the tropes. So what was the first thing I mentioned before? The heads of the family will always be present. And then once you find the head of the family, you have to look backwards to see which members are there. So here is our head of the family, Zakef Katon, and now we have to move backwards. So there's the dangling pashta. So we have now pashta. And since that's the end of that line, we got to go backwards to the first line and see if there's more. And of course, since I've colored them all in, you can see them. But we're still going to identify them. This is mapach. See how it's more still in the middle of the word, not quite on the front of it. So this is considered mapach. And then we have pashta. So the only one that's missing is a munach. So let's sing them. Kalma mapach pashta Zakef Katon. Right? Okay. So we've sung that a couple times. We're feeling good about it. Step 3 is to identify accents. So again, 90% of Hebrew words have their accents primarily on the last syllable. The other 10% have them in the middle or at the beginning. So let's read the Hebrew to see where the accents belong. Ketov, that's the last syllable, so we're good. It might look like it's in the middle, but you have to read the Hebrew to make sure you see where the syllable goes. So that can be deceiving. Sometimes if you see the trope in the middle, maybe you're thinking, oh, it's the middle syllable. But you have to be able to read the Hebrew correctly in order to identify. So ketov is the end. Zot is 1 syllable, so there's no need to identify that. Zikaron, and that's the last syllable. And the tropes, remember, the tropes are going to tell you where they are. But for tricky ones like ketov, where it seems like it's in the middle, reading the Hebrew is your litmus test to make sure that that's the right space. And the last word is basefer. Okay, and the trope is telling you something, and that something is that the syllable is on the second, accent is on the second syllable. Basefer. Trope is telling you, and even by reading it, you can see. So, the 4th and final step, of course, once all those elements are together, is to chant, is to sing the Hebrew. So it goes like this. Keto zot zikaron basefer. Alright, so what I want to do real quick. Okay, so we have our dot system and the tropes above. And I want to sing them, and I'm going to point to these dots so you can see what's going on as I sing. Ketov, right? The last sounds of your tropes are where the main melody is, and that's what you need to use in your Hebrew, because, as I said, all the names of these tropes, all the trope names, rather, have their accents at the end, and therefore the music of these tropes is meant for words for the end. It's when we don't have a word where the accent is at the end where we have to kind of maneuver and play around a little bit. Okay, so ketov is the last accent, so that works just fine. Ketov. And now we have zot. And we're only looking for the last part of mapach, pach. So now zot just gets those last sounding syllables. Zot. And we have zikaron. And there's only 2 sounds for zikaron. So in order for you to get to the main part, the pash, ta part, you're going to stretch out the pash or the syllables prior to your trope in order to get to that high note. Zikaron. Yeah? And then basefer, excuse me. So this is a word that we identified as an accent in the middle. So zikaron has the melody on Zakef Katon, ton. So for basefer, you start on ba, which is just the dot before it, and the 3 sounds Zakef Ka are all the same. So you just take one of them because you only have 1 syllable. Basefer. Right? Okay. All right, we're going to end it there. I know I wish I had a Yetiv in here, but again, I gave you those examples. This can be a tricky family. A, because there's 5 of them, and B, it's not a melody that sticks as well as, say, the sof pasuk or et nachta. But this one does occur a lot, right? So the 3 main tropes we've discussed are sof pasuk, which is red, our stopping sign for the end of a verse, our et nachta, which is green, just kind of our trope comma, if you will, and then our zakef katon is yellow. These are the 3 main tropes that you will see in most verses. And then next week we'll explore what we have over here. We call this darga tevir. And sometimes you'll also see a mercha, which we have seen in et nachta and sof pasuk, but it is now part of a new family, and therefore it is not the same sound. So I wrote on top of tevir, amen, because when we sing amen prior to reading a portion, we, as in the person actually reading the Torah, you sing the trope melody for, and you use the trope melody of tevir for amen. So it sounds like this, amen, for those of you who are familiar with a Torah reading and a Torah service. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Shalom.